From overlooking their star players' past to honoring them in front of millions, the NBA isn't afraid to show off their array of borderline criminals. Their most recent was honoring Karl Malone with all his crimes ignored. The NBA should be ashamed of letting such a guy attend the event. If you haven't figured it out yet, we're talking about Karl Malone. The Utah Jazz legend was a huge part of the All-Star Weekend, and that surprised fans and the general public alike. It all looks normal for those unaware of Malone's past. He's just a fantastic basketball player participating along with fellow legends in his former team's home city. And the NBA probably prayed day and night for that to be the only memory of Malone that remains alive. I mean, they did try to assure that by allowing him a stage alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James. Malone is third on the career scoring list, so the NBA could argue that they were forced to bring him in. That phrase should be reserved for when he's arrested. No one remembers third-place winners anyway. Even though the NBA is banking on the public overlooking certain things as they have, it isn't possible. HBO's Bomani Jones opened his monologue saying that he's hated Karl Malone for a long time. This is the second time recently that the problematic player has been honored, the first being during the 2022 NBA All-Star Game as one of the 75 greatest players of all time. But not only was he a dirty player, but a dirty person too. You might ask, what's so bad about him? What has Malone done that's so abhorrent? I'll give you a hint in 4 words. It includes a minor. Decades ago, in 1983, a 20-year-old Malone had gotten together with a 13-year-old. The young girl, Gloria Bell, was his girlfriend while he played basketball at Louisiana Tech University. And that wasn't even close to the worst part of his past. He impregnated the minor. And before anyone says that it could be a false accusation, the paternity test showed a 99.3% probability that Malone was the father of Demetrius Bell. The Bell family could have filed criminal charges against him. According to the law in Louisiana, an individual couldn't consent to sex until the age of 17, making this an invalid act from Malone's side, and the statutory offense could have carried a 10-year sentence in prison. It was their grace that they didn't do so. Malone was a neighborhood kid with an impending NBA future, so they didn't press charges. He owes the entire credibility of his future for Bell's parents' choice of letting his pedophilia slip away. But this pedo has the audacity to deny the paternity of the child. This forced Gloria's family to sue Malone. Eventually, they settled out of court, which allowed Malone to not acknowledge that he was the father. That's how it was confirmed that he was the father as expected. But that's not where the story ended for Malone's constant shortcomings. His actions are horrendous and left the fans baffled. If the NBA still views itself as a respectable and credible organization after this, then that's reason to believe that they've probably done something like this before. Wouldn't be surprising, honestly. In 1985, Demetrius's grandparents filed a lawsuit requesting just $200 a week to help raise his child. Malone didn't respond. It's not like he couldn't pay. His career earnings amounted to a whopping $104 million, and he couldn't spare a couple of $100s for his own child through a minor. Hence, he was ordered to pay $125 per week in child support, and he appealed. That's how he reached a settlement that didn't require him to acknowledge that he was the father. Demetrius went on to be drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2008 and played in the NFL till 2013. Quite a remarkable achievement. He revealed that his crappy father told him that he'd have to make it on his own, and it was too late for him to play the father figure role. The supposed honored player didn't meet Demetrius till he was 30 years old. They first interacted in 2014, and Malone's history with producing children and then abandoning them didn't stop there. Bonita Ford dated Malone when they were in high school. In 1989, she filed a paternity lawsuit against the former basketball player. Malone had a set of twins by the name of Daryl and Cheryl, who were 8 at the time of the suit. The 19-year NBA vet was held in contempt of court after he refused to submit his DNA blood test. He's the prime example of avoiding devastating responsibility, and to know that the NBA holds him up in high regard is making the public sick. This case, as the previous one, was also resolved out of court. The twins actually ended up being successful in sports too. Malone reached out to the twins when they were 17 years old. Both went on to play basketball at Louisiana Tech, and Cheryl actually ended up having a 10-year WNBA career, winning 3 championships with the Detroit Shock. When reflecting on these decisions, Malone said that he didn't handle it right, and that at the time, the responsibilities seemed overwhelming to him. A few of his fans defend Malone by saying that this is just the cancel culture, but here's the thing. He has never so much as acknowledged Gloria, Demetrius, or the fact that he's a pedo. Surely, the explanation of sleeping with a 13-year-old must be harder than the decision to abandon them. So, it isn't just a small mistake from the past, it's a crime from the past. And Malone doesn't care that he impregnated a child. These past few weeks, he's been getting a ton of hate, rightfully so. These incidents obviously cast a shadow over what would have been an amazing legacy. Remove Malone and his past and think about his record. He's the 3rd all-time leading scorer, a 14-time All-Star, and a 2-time MVP. This shows that he had a ton of talent, because not a lot of players can boast the same, and because of his actions, all of it went down the drain in the eyes of the public. Having intimate relationships with minors is disturbing and a crime. His tendency to maintain a low profile and not expose himself too much is why his actions don't always see the light. The Salt Lake City Tribune reported that the legend appeared to offer absolutely nothing about his previous actions. The 59-year-old said that he's not discussing any of that and doesn't care. He continued that it's his personal life and he'll deal with it like he's had to deal with everything else, and that he's human. But here, imagine this. The only reason the public knows about his inclination towards minors is because of the lawsuits that happened. The player is 59 years old now. I can't imagine how many other children he's been actively involved in that the fans don't know about, or how many children he's conjured up since then. The fans are more enraged by his response. A Twitter user said that this is what happens when people aren't held accountable. While he should have been locked up for this, he got away with it and now shows no remorse. Pedophilia isn't a human mistake. It's an active crime and a huge problem. For the NBA to promote it puts them on a parallel pedestal. Another fan said that Malone is delusional to think that his statutory offense is just part of being human. In general, he's aware that his past is coming back to bite him, but he just doesn't care. This is why the NBA should be ashamed of themselves for honoring someone like him.